Hi everyone, my name is Del. I work on BookiesBonuses.com, a website operated by Leadstar Media. To my left is Felipe, and to my right is Jonas. If you would like to introduce yourself, Felipe, and how you work.
Sure. I work with the Brazilian, Italian, and Portuguese market for about 5 years now. And pleasure to have this talk with you guys today.
Yeah, and I'm Jonas. I work at Bettingstuga.se. It's the Swedish market. Been working for 6 years in betting.
Yeah. Excellent. So, would you like to talk about how we all got into betting generally? Start with you, Felipe. When did you sort of get the bug, as it were?
It was a while ago. Don't want to give away my age here, but it was about 15 years ago. It came in quite naturally. Always been really fanatic about sports, and always had this eye for statistics, for, let's say, following numbers and some things that are more behind the game. And then we talk about sports, more specifically tennis, is something that I have always loved watching, and very quickly got into following, let's say, head-to-heads, match winner predictions, and so on. So it was almost a natural shift into, okay, how can I use these things that I'm very interested in into betting? And from that one, it just progressed into watching a lot of tennis, like a lot of observation, and using that on my favor to try to win a couple bucks against the house.
Yourself, Jonas?
I've always liked betting and sports in general. I actually didn't bet that much before I turned like 30 or something.
Okay.
So I had some friends that were also sports interested. So we started this betting group. We took over 1 week each to bet in our group. So when my week came, we always gained money. And when my friends had their weeks, we always lost money. So I understood that I had some talent.
Yeah.
I have a very similar experience with a team of friends of my own as well. A couple guys from Brazil. That's a little bit later when the fever around sports betting happened in Brazil, and it was of course very much about football and the beginner's mistake of going like, I want to bet on my team. I know what's happening. I know about this player and so on. Like these pitfalls, and we did exactly the same kind of system. Where, okay, you're the manager of the account for a week, for one round, and we would go around in this. And same thing here. I used to make the money. 2 weeks later, they lost all of it, and a little bit more. It's like, okay, you recover, and you would look at the bets and like, okay, this is really like beginner's level. It's like those, low odds, betting on the favorite, putting 3-4 together, but this didn't happen.
My friends took like 7 games, and then they got maybe 5 or 6 every week. Like, I was so close, but you always fail on one.
Really an accumulator. Yeah.
But then I started to bet on my own because I knew that I got this talent.
Yeah.
So, got really good at it, and I had a friend that I knew online that we sent tips to each other. And then we said that maybe we should take this like wider. Maybe we should share our tips. So me and my friend sent out text messages about our betting tips. So we were one of the first actually, because now it's very common. So we sent those out. We had like 300 paying customers. It went really good. And then one day, Bet365 just closed all our accounts. And at that point, Leadstar Media took contact with me and offered me a job. So
fantastic.
So I took it.
Fantastic. Yeah, for me, I guess it's a bit different. Like the UK market is so betting orientated. I remember going to my grandparents' home on a Saturday, and then my dad we'd be watching the horse racing like with my grandparents and having a bet and everything else. So it was almost like second nature to me as I got older. I did pick out a Grand National winner when I was under the age of legal betting, but obviously my dad would go pick one out, so we picked one out and it won. But obviously, you're not allowed to do that yourself, unfortunately. But But yeah, for me, like a bit like Felipe, I love stats. I like to find order in numbers, I guess is the only way I can describe it. So, you know, whether it's like over, under for goals, you know, fouls, cards, whatever, I quite like that side of things. I'm very football orientated, and also sort of American sports like baseball I quite like. Although I grew up with horse racing and I do have a fond love of it, it's not my go-to for betting, just because I don't have enough dedication to studying form and so on. I have a good friend of mine who got me into this industry in the first place. He runs a tipping service, and I remember trying to help him out at one point, and the dedication you need there on a day-to-day basis is unreal.
You need to see the warm-up.
Yeah, you need to see everything, you know. So like coming to a company like this, it's a healthy balance between having that interest and also trying to help others find, you know, the best options, basically. So, you know, I'm a very happy guy, but yeah, I've been probably I've probably been experiencing betting or people betting in my life probably like 45 years now. So, you know, it's been a long time. So, but your very first betting experience, what was like your first time you had a bet? What was the, you know, how did it feel? What was the reason behind it?
Yeah. I mean, it started as, I think most people just give it a shot, but it was specifically in tennis. And then, I mean, match winner was the first kind of market. But I think quickly I realized that the level of observation that I had to have right before setting a bet was quite important. That I think I progressed quite quickly, understanding like, okay, control your impulse. Don't just watch and go with a feeling. Like do your homework before. Like I like to follow the tournaments. I like to follow the players. And once I understood that, okay, more and more I know about this player, this behavior, you'll get me closer to winning the bets. So the first ones were, I would say that there was one that really kept my attention. It was the first kind of a big win. And that one, I almost decided that was my formula. Say I was watching and following a specific player for some time, and I mean I can mention, yeah, it was Gilles Simon was like a French player that was this is like 15 years ago, and how his style would match up against Nadal, and by that time he had played I think 3 or 4 times against Nadal, had lost all of them, but I would see his progress and how that developed and how he was getting better and better, and you sense that like he's on a good moment, and then when there was a chance of playing Nadal in the Madrid Open, where the odds go even more in favor, say Nadal was a huge favor. And I think it's important to mention too, like tennis is a sport where you don't get value at all on betting on the favorites. The margins are as little as it gets. Yeah. So you need to just be looking for underdogs.
You need to find other things, maybe like handicap or.
Yeah, and like, or watching the underdogs, how they progress, how they're coming, because the odds will always be really, really low on margins for the big favorites. So technically, this was like the perfect opportunity to go a bit higher than I usually go, let's say, on the side in the stake.
Do you remember the odds?
Well, I think about just like 520 or something. Yeah, so not that major. It's just a single bet. But I went, quite big, than much more than I used to in the beginning. And yeah, and luckily, let's say that was a pretty decent win. And I decided, okay, that's something that I will continue doing it. And sometimes, going more on a double, on a triple, or going with a handicap, be more specific about what is that what is it that you're feeling here, and then you go a bit bigger with your feeling of what's actually going to happen.
How do you, talking about tennis betting, bet builders have become a thing now in tennis as well as lots of football and stuff. Do you find them worthwhile bets to have, the bet builders, or do you go very specific to one market?
They're a bit tricky, I'll say, because it's just like any other bet builder. You're going to need to look at a lot of factors before deciding it. So it becomes a whole nother level of observation, I say. if you set your formula to be following players, seeing the momentum, and then going for a match winner, or how you feel that the match is going to play out in terms of number of gains, will have a tie break in the match, yes or no. These kind of predictions, so to say, are a bit easier. But once you set for a bet builder, you have to look for a lot of other things. So it just expands a lot the scenario. And as you mentioned before, like the dedication needs to be a bit on a higher side to actually make it happen. Like I think you risk a lot more, but if you set out correctly, you put up a strategy, and you can make it the same way.
Yeah, strategy is very important. That's for sure. What about yourself, Jonas? What was your first betting experience?
I think it was with my dad, actually. He played the Strict Tipset, a famous game in Sweden where you're predicting 13 games.
Yeah.
And trying to get all of them correct. So I remember following him to the local shop in my hometown. He was writing down the signs, and I said, take Aston Villa, because that was my favorite team. And I remember he won some money because Aston Villa won one time. Yeah, that was my first betting experience.
Why Aston Villa?
I think it was Olof Mellberg.
I was wondering.
That was playing Aston Villa. I like the name Aston Villa. It sounded cool. And I think they ended up second in Premier League, like 95 or something.
Yeah.
And then it went downhill.
It's an interesting. My grandfather, most of my family are from London, but my grandfather supported Aston Villa, and it turns out that he was taken to a game. I'm not sure who he attended with or who the other team was, but he decided that whoever won that game he would support.
Yeah.
So he was an Aston Villa supporter, even though he was never near Birmingham or whatever.
It's incredible how you can pick a team.
Yeah.
The rest of your life on those.
I mean, I'm Tottenham for my sins. Yeah. My dad supported Tottenham, so therefore, you inherit that fandom. But
it wasn't because of any win. Then.
No. There don't be much, to be fair. So, but I mean, for myself, my first betting experience that I can sort of really remember, where I actually went in and placed a bet rather than picked a winner from the Grand National, which was like a sort of traditional thing that a lot of people do in the UK. We used to go greyhound racing in a track called Wimbledon, and I remember picking out a dog. I can't remember the dog's name, but my dad taught me how to read the form of a greyhound, like sort of book or whatever, or card, sorry. And I just looked at this dog, and I remember you have like the sort of quarterly times for like the first part of the race and the second part and so on. And I just kept looking at this, going, if I'm reading this correctly, this should do well. So I put like a couple of pounds on. I didn't put too much on, and I mean, he came like third. But then I remember being disappointed because I was only about 19, I guess, maybe 19, 20. I was disappointed that he didn't win, but I always remember my dad would come up to me and said, "What did you bet on?" So I told him the name of the dog, and I remember sitting there for about 10 minutes, and he was explaining to me why he didn't pick it. So like learning that knowledge of like, what he sees, what other people see, is quite a fundamental skill now, because as well as your own assessments, you also have your own bias, so you have to sort of take that out of the equation. Like I will never bet on Tottenham because they're my team. So therefore I can't be unbiased, So yeah, so it's quite interesting. But yeah, greyhound racing was quite a big thing for when I was younger. Unfortunately, the tracks in the UK, a lot of them have closed now. So my go-to tends to be like football bets or accumulators or stuff like that, or even golf as well. Golf's quite a productive sort of sport to gamble on. So yeah, moving on.
Do you bet on your favorite teams?
No, I actually have the same.
Because I feel the most about your own team.
Yeah,
but then that is a good betting.
But do you not think you give confirmation bias to a selection? Like
if I can't bet against my team, then I'm biased. But when you know a lot about your team, you also know when they probably gonna lose.
That's true. Yeah.
But you have to be able to let go of your feelings.
Yes,
with the team, and that could be.
And also hatred for other teams. If you don't like a team, you have to sort of go, okay, look, I don't like this team, but they're probably going to win. and so on. So
I think this knowledge can be really specific as well. I mean, sometimes you know a lot about your team, and then if you dig a little bit deeper, you go, okay, the player's behavior, or like you know all of the players, you know that more than in the other teams or other teams of the league. So you follow the players, like for example, betting on a yellow card or a foul, so like that. That if you're kind of like expecting or watching the player throughout his career, I think it's really interesting. But I agree with that sometimes it's more the emotion that you have that will certainly give you a bit of some setbacks will happen for sure, some losses, but I think you'll learn with that as well. Like you learn with your mistakes, and but I would say that's a good betting tip. Like, don't start with your own team.
No, don't start there. But
I do wonder actually how many people that supported Real Madrid would have backed Sergio Ramos to get a card. that man was like a walking yellow card machine, wasn't he, back in the day? So
it's a low odds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So next question, interesting one. What's your biggest win or even loss that you've ever had? And feel free to discuss it, just whatever you wish to say. If you're angry about the team losing, by all means, crack on.
But I had a good year 2021, so I bet a lot on like I talked about Strict Tipset, and we also have a Swedish betting thing that is called the Europa Tipset. Also the same as Strict Tipset, you have 13 games that you want to get all the correct winners on. So I had one good week where I won 3.1 million kronor. So on 13 games, I got all the ones correct.
And my brain is just gone.
No one else in Sweden got those games. So
wow.
So I was the only one.
Is there a rough estimate in euro that you have an idea of?
300,000.
300,000.
300,000 euro. Yeah, it was a good win.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, there's me winning a few hundred, and I'm happy.
Exactly. I sold that one as a share, so we were six people sharing that win. So but it was a good win.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. So, for myself,
that's my biggest win.
Yeah, for myself, nowhere near as exciting. I have to say, I tend to bet with smaller amounts and then sort of go for relatively easy selections, not in terms of like smaller accumulators and stuff like that. So the couple of big wins I've had, I about £400, so nothing extravagant compared to your good self, but it's happened twice. One was for football, it was just an accumulator, and then the other was on I forget his name, Bubba Watson winning I think it was the US Open or the Masters. I can't remember off the top of my head now. He was like, I think 80-1, and I stuck a like $5 on or something like that. So, and then there's been a few wins on greyhounds where it's been a few hundred. So, I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm probably down more than up. But, again, small win is still a good win. My favourite story about loss is actually my parents. So they used to do the football pools where you would pick 10 results, and they'd have to be score draws. And so if you got 8 from 10, you would win the jackpot, which is about £1 million back in the day. So I came home from somewhere on Saturday afternoon about 5 o'clock. My dad was a little bit agitated, and he was sweating a little bit. I'm like, "You're right, Dad." He says to me, "I think I've won the pools." And I'm like, "Okay." So he said, "Can you check the coupon for me?" And what he'd done was, he rather than calculate the best 8 from 10, he calculated 9 from 10. Mm-hmm. So basically, if it was a score draw, you get 3 points. And then any other result was like a point or something like that. So he thought he had enough points to win the jackpot, but he overcounted the extra 2. So that's probably like the biggest loss technically. Like,
he thought he won.
Yeah, from a disappointment point of view. But like, and the worst bit was having to bring him down, being that guy as his son. Like, it was just like, "I'm really sorry, Dad. I don't think this is right. So we recounted it several times. Like, no.
How much did they think he had?
If he'd won, it would have been about £1 million. Yeah, because it's a share. So if you've got more people sharing, So, but yeah, the general prize for the pools was £1 million each week. So yeah. That was probably the biggest disappointment I've witnessed. I've lost like £5-10 here, but you play to your means as always. So, what about yourself, Felipe?
Yeah, not that exciting as Jonas has mentioned. Nowhere near, let's say, the professional level. For me, it was more of a recreational, and also fulfilling my interests. Let's say I would like to follow but one thing I can say that was quite interesting to get into when I was a bit more serious about it was like during the pandemic, during COVID, like year 2020 was a very interesting year for tennis in general, because the calendar was just like nothing else. The odds were interesting. That it was difficult for everyone, even for the bookies to set up these odds. So there was a lot of opportunity there. It was a year as well where the results were very, very, very random. So if you like to back an underdog and follow, it was a very interesting one. I'd say when it comes to amounts, was closer to what you said. I'd say €500. I actually got this one right, which was an incredible match to watch. Was the 2020 US Open final between Dominic Thiem and Alexander Zverev, which I had money on Dominic Thiem for a while, let's say since quarterfinals. And then the final itself, it was just a thriller, coming from very, very, very close to losing. It's almost one of those bets that I had already counted that I was going to lose. And and then they turned it out in my favor. And I was waiting for the results for a week. Yeah. So when it actually happened, it was a fantastic feeling.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and on my win, the whole family was asleep. I was watching the games, and it was only United Leeds. That was the last game that I needed to. I had Manchester United to win, and it was 0-0 until minute 93, I think. And then Rashford scored. So I couldn't scream because I don't know. I would wake up.
Was it like a Monday evening kickoff?
It was. I think it was Saturday. Saturday. Yeah. I just went out, took a walk. Like it was a calm celebration.
Yeah,
I couldn't live out.
No, of course. Yeah, no, that's the worst part. If you win a bet or your team wins or whatever it is, and you can't celebrate, it's like it's so difficult to not annoy people. It's one of the best feelings though, in a weird way.
I called my mother. I remember she started crying. It was a good feeling.
Did you? I hope you treated her.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next topic. Favorite types of bets. So sports and or the markets you prefer. Felipe, if you want to go.
I've talked a lot about tennis betting, so I would probably switch to football by now. But we talked about it, and it's really, the more you know, the closer you are to get that right. So I always give the advice to study before, put your research in. My favorite type of bet is actually when you know a lot about the context of what you're betting in, and just get deeper and deeper into your expertise. Let's say if it is number of goals or corners or handicap, but just get your expertise into something specific, and then you continue that trend. You're gonna get much closer to the winnings that you are wishing for, and that's really my advice.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm almost the same answer as Felipe, but I like live betting as well, because then you have all the facts on the table, like the lineup. You can see the momentum in the games, and you have everything you need to know about the team as well.
In-play betting has really like taken off in the UK. Again, for the same reasons, Sky in the UK shows pretty much every game, so that you can watch these games. Whereas, it's the one thing I hate about if I do a bet builder I need to be able to see the game. Because otherwise you just don't have that same feeling and vibe. And obviously cash out as well is important. If you have the option of cashing out during a game, you need to be watching it because you cannot grasp momentum. Years ago, you used to listen to like games on the radio. You still can't get an idea of the momentum because you don't have that visual, indicator. And as much as betting operators have these little like images now where there's you see like a bar and it moves backwards and forwards wherever the ball is, you're like, this is no good for me. I need to see the live game. So yeah, I completely understand.
The cash out function is, it was stressing me out a lot because I didn't know. I was constantly thinking about when to cash out. So I actually decided like 3 years ago that I'm never going to cash out. So I never cash out actually.
I think, I mean, I don't know how it is in your markets, but like UK markets, you've got the cash out, but the nice thing about like bet builders and accumulators, especially bet builders for live games, you have that thing where if you miss out by one result, you'll get your cash back, which is great. So it does help with that because I know exactly what you mean. I used to see cash out and like, oh my god, I can make £8, but if I hold on, I can make £10. Like £2 doesn't make a massive difference, but it's the principle, isn't it? Almost like.
And you always remember the ones you didn't cash out.
Yes, exactly.
You can't remember the
exactly.
You stated.
No, indeed. But like, so other than football, do you bet on anything else? Or?
I like football the most, but I actually like corner bets. It's my special thing. I read a lot about the teams and calculate how many corners they get and how the wingers are working. And I also like that you can celebrate a lot of times during a game, and it's getting exciting when they get close to the line.
So the corner flag.
When I'm at O'Leary's, people are wondering why I'm sharing when they get the corner.
I had a recent bet. I think it may be Arsenal and Manchester United or something. And one of the sections of the bet was to do with corners, and the result was fine. Everything else was fine. It was just corners. I'm like, come on, please, just one more corner. And it's like afterwards you sort of sit there and you go, what the hell am I doing? Like it's just, why am I pleading for this corner to come?
We had several moments where this specific aspect of you like cheering for corners where you don't even care about the match anymore. Just about corners. And like it is something so interesting with corners that sometimes you lose hope. Let's say if it went a bit big or say over 11 or something in the match, and then 15 minutes left, and I don't know, there's 6 or 7 corners. You're like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then, it goes 1, and you're like, that's good. But then it comes that sequence of it.
Momentum.
Exactly.
There's that beautiful moment when they take that corner and the defender just heads it back out again. You're like, right, go on, another one.
And the best thing is when they are in the lead and then they go down to the corner flag. Protecting the ball, you get the corner.
You get 1, 2, 3 you can get 3 corners in a couple seconds. And sometimes at the end of the match, like this is not that unlikely to happen. So like that's also good advice. Like never cash out your corner.
No.
Cash out your corner back.
Well, if there's any questions about whether we are gamblers, I think the corners has just answered that, really, isn't it?
One more level.
So, but I mean, like for myself, like I'm very football orientated. Like I've been in this sort of position, like in terms of like writing about betting and gambling for like 14 years now, I think, give or take. And my football knowledge is very good. Like I grew up reading World Soccer magazine, so my international knowledge was always pretty good. And then for my sins, things like Football Manager and FIFA, or whatever it's called now, EAFC, you find information, really weird information, like, oh, this guy's quite tall, or whatever. And you just sort of double check it in real life, and it's, oh, he's a tall guy, he's going to win more headers. I remember the World Cup. I think I read some stats, and it was like the Danish team were all like one of the tallest teams in the World Cup. So every time they played in the group stage, I was like betting on like headed shots at goal or, like corners, because obviously if you're going to take advantage of your height by trying to get more corners and stuff like that. So it's just those weird little idiosyncrasies that you look at and go, okay, maybe I can get an angle here. But like in terms of other sports, like like say ice hockey. I quite like baseball because they're very statistically orientated. So like, you can bet on the stats for the games. And then like golf, I really enjoy. Golf is one of the most interesting ones because a lot of bookmakers now offer extra places. So one of the operators in the UK, Boyle Sports, they will offer like 8 or 10 places on an event. Now the thing is, there's, at most I think there's about 90 players in an event at any one time, usually a bit less. So if you've got a guy who's like, I don't know, 30 to 1, 40 to 1, and you're guaranteed a fifth of the odds if they finish in the top 10, it's not a bad gamble. You know, like I said, I tipped the winner of the last of this European Masters. I didn't have a bet on him, but he was 40 to 1. So, you know, you get an each way bet. That's a nice tidy win, you know. So I really like the structure of golf betting in that regard. They've expanded now where you can get things like, you know, head-to-head games against other players and who's the leader after round one. But I just find the outrights I find really good. And with that, you can study like the form books, like the PGA Tour in the States. You go onto the official site and there's like a raft of statistics. So, you know that if say, for instance, they're playing a course that's got, you know, long par fives and they're a good driver, you know, they could take advantage of this. Or if they're good on the greens, you know, and it's the greens are quite accessible, you're thinking, okay, this guy's going to have a good chance. So I've really got into golf as I've got older, like in terms of the betting side of it. But yeah, in terms of markets, like I say, I tend to sort of stick to winning markets, just pure winning markets. So like the golf, as I say, maybe each way, but accumulators and stuff like that, I prefer those. And I guess this is also growing up when you used to go to the betting shop, like you were talking about with your father. You get these sheets and it would have all of the weekend's games and you could pick out up to like 14 or something, depending on how much you want to put on. And every weekend you're like hoping that this random team from Scotland manages to win, you know. My dad would always curse Rafe Rovers in Scotland because they cost him several times, you know. It's like, I mean, we couldn't even probably tell where Rafe Rovers is, you know. So, but yeah, it's just one of those. So yeah, so like I like the accumulators. But yeah, so moving on again. Do you have any sort of tips, or is there any sort of like patterns that you follow? Is there some sort of superstition, or is it something you have which is not necessarily a normal thing to look at when you're betting? So for myself, for instance, when the Copa Libertadores is on in South America, I like betting on the Bolivian sides when they're at home because they play so high above sea level. Yeah. And we know that teams will only travel the day before, maybe, so acclimatization is difficult. Yeah, and, you know, it doesn't always work, but it's just my little thing that I have that I always look for, you know. So do you have anything similar?
I recommend like choosing one market, one league or something to really dig into something really much. So you have better information than, not better, but as good as information that the bookies are having. That could be one tip.
So you mean like, so if say for instance you were to create an accumulator across multiple leagues, don't pick a league that you don't have knowledge in, basically, that sort of.
No, better to take more from the leagues that you
familiarity. Yeah.
And I usually also give a tip that you could play in the lower leagues because the betting companies don't have that good knowledge about those leagues. Yeah. For example, Premier League, the odds are pretty much where it should be. It's hard to find good value if you play on Newcastle or Leeds or anything. But if you go down to maybe League One, Bristol Rovers or something like that, then maybe you can find odds that are
very true.
A little bit off.
Same thing can be applied to tennis. Let's say the value really is much greater in the lower categories that you go. So challengers. So more you follow a specific player, let's say this uprising players, or players are also downgrading. When a player has been, let's say a top 50 in the world, but he's on a downturn moment and is trying to play challengers more than masters or tournaments with the highest prize money. That's usually like a really good and easy way of going for. Let's say on challenger tournaments is really where the odds are. You have a little bit of an advantage because if you do your homework, let's say, there's less homework on the side of the bookies.
Yeah.
While they know that especially in tennis, the attention that people really go for the Grand Slams, the Master tournaments, is once the popularity of betting in these tournaments are way higher than on challenger tournaments. So also the effort that they put into setting those odds are
more accurate odds.
Exactly.
Those big.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think research and familiarity with your chosen sport and or market, I think is essential. I think I've been guilty when my knowledge was sort of naive, if you like, very little at the time when I first started gambling, where you would almost go, oh, Manchester United are at home, they're going to win, or this team is going to win, because the assumptions that you have. And as we know, assumptions never work half the time, So I think research, developing your knowledge and being very pinpoint in what you bet on is fundamental to what you do. And I think ultimately as well, like, the biggest thing is to have fun, because if you do it as a recreation and do it for fun, you're clearer of mind. You're going to have the ability to see, you're not trying to push yourself to win money because you need to win money. Having the fun. So, okay, if I lose, it's not the end of the world. But what I find is, if you're relaxed, you're happy, you're chilled, your sort of research and your ability to pick the right selections is far, far better.
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Would also add is try to learn something from the setbacks. You're obviously going to lose a lot of these bets along the way, but you oftentimes you can identify the reasons of course. Sometimes things just don't go the way you predicted, but there's always something that you can learn from one of these moments that you can apply the next time, and usually that luck turns to the other side.
Yeah, because you never know. A red card could come after 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
You had a good read, but it
I actually, to add to what you just said there, when a few years ago, I was starting to look at accumulators and bet builders, like as my main sort of focus. And what I actually did was I actually had a notepad, and every time I had a bet, I would note down the amount of selections, what league, how much I put on, and whether it won or not. And then what I realized was I was almost overreaching. So whereas like before I'd have like 6 or 7 selections, I would just make it 4 or 5 or even 3. Because obviously the more you add, the more chance you're going to have a failure. And it's a very simple thing. But when you actually write it down, or even, put it on a computer or whatever, when you see it in front of you, it makes for quite harsh reading. And that's how you learn. It's the only way you can improve is to actually visualize and see your mistakes and your errors, and then you will become a better gambler. I mean, you're never going to win all the time, as we know. As one person said to me years ago, who doesn't like gambling, it's a mug's game. But with the best research and the best of intentions, you can make some profit. So
I usually recommend doing singles only, because then you have very good money management. If you get 6 of 10 correct, then you make a profit. You don't get these big wins that you get with an accumulator, but
I think
you have a stable.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is like a lot of people chase, don't they? They chase
the higher
shot. And it's like, as much as a 10-team accumulator might net you a tidy sum, we also know, I mean, as you say, your chances are you may not ever win that sort of money again that you won before. You may do. I mean, I hope you do. Quite frankly, So, but as a person who's gambled for a long time now, that sometimes these are just one-offs. And so rather than keep chasing that dream, you just go, well, okay, look, if I win small incremental amounts, you're still up, you're still winning. So chasing that mega shot is, I've seen some friends of mine that have done that. Oh, I've got a 15-team accumulator. And you're just like, why? Why not have 15 separate bets? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they might have 13 of those 15, and that's incredible, but you don't get any money.
No, exactly.
That means that your reading is correct. Is what you said, Jonas. It's like you're reading things very well, correctly, but you're not betting the right way. So if you have a very good feeling, and I usually think about this, how confident are you about what you're reading. And then that defines also, let's say, the stake that you're going to go for.
Yeah.
So if you are very confident, so sure about this reading that you have about one particular game, which is often much higher than in other games. In the accumulator, you're a bit more confident about 1 or 2 or 3 of the selections than the other 2.
Yeah.
You're risking a little bit more.
Yeah.
So how about just raise your stake on the ones that you're really confident about it? Is a much better strategy than actually picking more and more selections to make that, this looks really good.
Yeah.
It's
probably the best tip we can give people.
How confident are you with the selection that you made? And
most definitely. Well, thank you guys. That was an interesting discussion, and hopefully we do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers. Thank you.